I want to get to another question. Can the global rise in anti-Semitism, manifesting largely in democracies, be seen as a leading indicator of an assault on democracy and democratic values and institutions?
Anti-Semitism we understand quite a bit about it. We know, first of all, obviously where it can lead to, but we also know what drives it, a lot of what drives it. Professor Ruth Weiss has argued that anti-Semitism is deeply embedded in Western ideology, basically through religion. In other words, early Christianity has this problem with Jews who are not accepting that Jesus Christ, fulfilled their story, and by not accepting it, created a theological tension in early Christianity to explain it. And sometimes that theological tension came out in ways that are oppressive and ways that are hateful. And one of the astonishing people to read on this is St. Augustine, who is such a theologian of love. But when it comes to Jews, St. Augustine writes that they should be oppressed for all time because of that rejection as a sign of the truth of Christianity. And this is seen also in early Islam. In the Quran itself, Jews are honored and respected, and there are customs that are borrowed from Jews that Muhammad inculcates into his followers. And then in the Quran itself, there are these later periods where it turns viciously on Jews and argues for their death and destruction. And it's a similar kind of tension of a sense of supersessionist competition. And that paradigm, buried deep in other monotheistic, basically missionizing religions, that borrowed these ideas from the Jews, but the Jews remained what they are, and that was seen as a kind of rebuke of the new religion, drove mass murder of Jews through the ages. The Crusaders, as they come down the Rhine River on their way to the Holy Land, the People's Crusade, the Zeroth Crusade, the crusade before the First Crusade, which is 40,000 peasants walking down the Rhine. About 40 kilometers into Muslim territory, they're massacred by the very first Seljuk army they meet. They were not a successful crusade, and they're not remembered well in Christian history. But on their way down the Rhine, they managed to kill 1 in 4 Jews in the cities of the Rhine. And when they do that, we actually have memoirs about them saying it's because they didn't accept Christ. That idea is secularized in the modern age, but the paradigm remains. And so for Marx, the Jews play this role of, just as with Christians, just as with early Islam, in some profound sense, standing in the way of redemption. And because they're capitalists. And for Hitler, world Jewry was this communist, Bolshevik, capitalist thing that oppressed the folk from all sides. When Jews encounter on a college campus the idea of intersectionalism, there are literally T-shirts given out at the Columbia encampment. And these people don't think they hate Jews, and there are Jews at the encampment. But there are T-shirts in which there is in the center the word Palestine, and all around the center, the word Palestine, all these other social issues, like police violence, like, climate, like inequalities in America. And the point of the T-shirt, what it says on the T-shirt is, everything is Palestine. Now, if you're Jewish, you look at that and you say, wait a second, I know what this is. This is a secularized, modern, progressive version of the idea that Zionism is some distillation of all evils in the world, of all oppression on earth. The Jews, once again, stand in the way. So when you go looking for the thing that stands, you're going through some crisis, you're experiencing some kind of social collapse. It's hard to talk about, fish don't know they're swimming in water. You're inside something is a very bad time to try to analyze it, because you're literally within it. You don't know what the alternative is. And so you experience this kind of crisis. You don't know what you're experiencing. It's very easy to find something that's standing in the way of healing and redemption and solution. And the Jews are the paradigm. The Jews are the paradigm for 2,000 years of Western thought, and that's been there in Islam. Not always, and often it's a very different relationship, very often, but the paradigm is there to borrow. And so, yes, anti-Semitism profoundly is a sign of massive crisis. Possibly if you don't deal with it well, and if you're turning to anti-Semitism, you're not dealing with it well. That's a good signal, possibly presaging a kind of collapse.